A princess is being held hostage in a palace who tries to leave this room as she wakes up, but she is unable to do so because the door was locked. She is now aware that she is being held captive in this location. She remembers falling out at the moment after smelling something. 2 guards subsequently come into the princess' room. She pretends to be asleep. The princess wakes up and assaults the guards as he attempts to approach her. He was being fought off and defeated by her. She later beats them, locks them, and leaves the scene. She enters a different chamber and notices via the window that Julius, the prince from a different city, has imprisoned the entire princess family. The younger sister, the king, the queen, and the princess's parents are also included. Later, we see the historical setting when Prince Julius and this princess were about to get married. She ran away from there on the wedding day because she didn't want to marry him. After all, he wasn't a decent man. He must have the princess at all costs since marrying her is the only way he can rule this city and become its king. Later, a guard walks into the princess's room wearing an iron mask. The princess hides in a bathtub after spotting him and holds her breath while submerged. When the guard confirms that no one is present, he leaves after arriving to check. The princess is leaving the area as he moves on, and in the interim, the guard casts a quick peek at her before seizing her. She engages the guard in combat, and her defense kills him. The princess remembers a time when the monarch, her father, had always wished for a son. We witness a historical figure who served as the princess's mentor and tutor. She has instructed the princess in every subject imaginable, including fighting techniques and swordplay. The princess's sister was going to give birth at this time. His mother tells the teacher that the king does not want his daughter to practice swordplay and combat because he thinks they are things that should be left to men and not women. She continues from there and enters a room while reflecting on old memories. 2 guards come, and she fights them off. She battles bravely, and once she has killed them, she emerges. Later, Julius sent a senior guard to see how the princess is doing. He gives him the task of determining whether she is ready for marriage. Instead of going to look for the princess, the senior guard sends a guard who appeared to be in good health. The senior guard coerces the healthier guard into going upstairs even if he doesn't want to. The princess was hiding from everyone and rushing to the opposite side. She hangs from the window outside after noticing the guard in good health. When the guard is unable to locate the princess, he departs from that location. The princess later leaves after returning to her room. The princess stealthily removes the sword from under her bed. After some time, she recalls how skillfully her teacher had imparted the art of swordplay, and how she had given the princess this sword out of sheer delight in her. The healthy guard is fatigued after ascending and his condition deteriorates. The princess hears odd sounds as she exits her room. Later, when Julius and Moira were in the room by themselves, she spotted a hole in the wall. It suggests a connection between the prince and his companion. The princess was ready to slay Julius when she used her sword to pierce the wall. The prince is informed by his guards that the king has called him as they enter his room. He then goes to the king to hear him out. The princess enters another room through a small opening in the wall. Later, a strong suit-clad guard assaults the princess. The princess later burns his body before throwing him out the window. Later, the alert guard appears and says, "I looked all around for the princess but couldn't find her." Hearing this makes him furious with his senior guard. He is instructed to instantly leave this location and search the entire castle. Later, Moira starts to doubt the guards, thinking that someone must know every trick in the palace's book. Everyone starts laughing at her and making fun of her as a result. After her insult, she uses her chain to viciously kill the senior guard as a result of this. She gives the command to all the guards to look for the palace. The princess, who was also seeing everything from where she was standing, tries to escape to survive. Because the guards were approaching the palace to search it, when she is besieged by several guards, she can't help but murder them all to save herself. She later drops the pearls from her shattered necklace on the stairs, which causes all the guards who were after her to collapse. Later, she rushes outside with a long fabric that she had noticed hanging from the window. With its assistance, she begins to drop. She moves down a little and walks into a room with a window. She starts to wrap herself up after being severely wounded and damaged. As we can see, her father was getting ready to wed Julius and the princess forcibly. "I don't like Julius, and I don't like to marry him," she informs the king that she wants to learn how to fight and use a sword. The monarch is shocked to hear this and tells her that it is not a good idea for a female to learn how to fight and use a sword. "Pay close attention to this. I'll arrange your marriage to Julius, who will thereafter rule this city. Even though you are my daughter, I had no expectations of your response. You are quite self-centered." She is now bandaging herself when someone enters her room unexpectedly. She becomes fully awake upon hearing him and assaults him. Later, she concludes that this guard is her master instructor. She is quite pleased to see her there. The princess afterward inquires of her teacher as to what occurred and what is going on. She approached her teacher for help since she couldn't recall anything. Later, she reveals to her that one night Julius came to battle and assault us after taking his guards, but that none of our people were willing to engage in combat with them. She is quite upset and holds herself entirely accountable. Her teacher advises her that instead of placing guilt on herself, now is the moment to show courage and save others. She informs the princess that the only exit from the palace is via a river. They exit there and proceed into the kitchen, where they observe that Julius's guards have caused extensive damage and are repressing the populace. 3 guards kidnap a lady and act inappropriately against her. They sneak over and attack the guards after realizing this. They advise the woman to run because there is a path behind them. Later, they were murdering the guards, so it is obvious that they were pretty courageous. The final guard to survive shows up to assault them, but Mario shows up soon after and kills him with her chain. Later, she engages in combat with them. Later, Moira hangs the princess after wrapping her in her chain. The instructor and Moira battle to save the princess from death as she was ready to suffocate. The instructor strikes her, she throws her aside, releasing the princess from her restraints. The instructor sets fire to Moira's 4 sides. Moira was unable to stop them, and they are now free to flee. When the instructor later invites the princess to leave on her own, the princess declines since she doesn't want to leave her teacher behind. The teacher attempts to explain to her why she should go. "You must go because you need to keep your family together. I'll confront Moira." The princess eventually concedes and gets ready to go. When she exits the river, she arrives at the prison where her family was held captive. The princess discovers that her family is being watched over by 3 guards. While some of them were playing games, others were sipping wine. The princess arrives and starts to sip wine there. She attacks them, then starts killing them. She later engages in combat with the guards, and releases her family. Her father is pretty astonished when he sees her fighting with the guards. Many more guards arrive there as she was leaving with her family, and after assaulting them, they fell unconscious. When the princess awakens, she discovers that her family and herself are both bound up in front of Julius. Moira occasionally travels with the princess's teacher as well. The princess says to Julius, "I think about you all day and night." She says, "I consider many methods to murder you, Julius, and I wait for the day when I will grasp your beating heart in my fingers." When Julius hears this, he gets very agitated and declares, "I'll marry the younger daughter of the princess," explaining that by doing this, he will also become king. After hearing Julius's statements, the princess signals to the teacher before he later gives the order for his guards to execute her. The instructor flees after stealing the princess's younger sister. The princess is afterward thrown out of the window by the guard. Later, she regains consciousness and realizes that she must battle to protect her family and the entire city. She remembers everything and cuts her rope from a piece of water glass. She then exits the water after completing this. Julius brings the prince's family to a church after chaining them up. There were a lot of people already there. In reality, he has come here to wed the prince's younger sister, and he has given the search for her permission. A guard was going to assault the princess when she later entered the palace. The princess's sister has been concealed by a statue. She tosses him on a guard as he approaches the monument, and he eventually perishes as a consequence. The princess is delighted to meet her instructor when she arrives in the interim. She wishes she hadn't married Julius because then she wouldn't have to experience this day. The younger sister is later brought there by the princess and the instructor. Where there were numerous weapons employed in battle, after putting on the war costumes, the princess and the teacher are prepared. After begging the younger sister to stay, they depart later. The princess and the instructor subsequently start to battle the guards while they were busy locating the prince's younger sister. Julius is astonished to hear the prince's voice since he thinks she has passed away. He sends additional troops to join them in battle. On the opposite side, the princess's younger sister sneaks inside the chapel and releases a student's friend who was the teacher's companion. Julius spots her in the interim and presents her to her father for marriage. The princess gets quite concerned when she sees this, but they are unable to halt since they were engaging in fierce combat with each of the guards. The instructor tries to enter after murdering a few guards, but Moira and the guards block their path. The princess tries to enter the church while everyone else is fighting there. Moira shows in and attempts to terrify the princess with her chain to stop her. Julius assaults the king in the cathedral. When the instructor notices this, she intervenes to defend him and joins Julius in combat. Moira and the princess alternately exert dominance over one another at times. The princess hangs Moira there after wrapping her in her chain. When the princess enters after murdering her, she discovers Julius has attacked her teacher. When the princess realizes how badly hurt she is, she breaks down in tears as she fears that her instructor, who had fallen and been hurt, may not have survived. The teacher's companion eventually arrives and takes her. Only the princess and Julius are left in the church at this time. Julius assaults the princess's injuries. She is in excruciating pain and gave up trying to resist. Later, they exit the chapel ahead of everyone else. Before Julius, the princess knelt, and Julius continued to press his blade to her neck. "I'm your new king," he was proclaiming to everyone. The princess thinks back to her teacher's advice to be patient throughout the fight and solely maintain your attention on the fight. Now that Julius has his attention diverted by the princess's silence, she behaves in the same manner. She snatches the blade out of his grasp and executes a single beheading blow. As she approaches her father after receiving the crown, after donning his crown, the king announces to everyone that my daughter, the princess, will take over as ruler of this realm going forward. Everyone smiles upon hearing this. The princess is shocked and delighted to learn that her instructor is still alive. The guard who is still alive shows up in the meantime and is delighted to meet the princess. "Oh princess, you're here, thank God you've been discovered. I've looked everywhere for you," The scenario was pretty humorous, and everyone starts to chuckle. The movie ends here. Thanks for watching and make sure to turn on that bell button after subscribing.